with the conclusion of the meeting earlier, these five powers continue to provide and share their multilateral security and defense framework, a special role and benefits to the wider Asia-Pacific region. We have with us today the Fpda member nation leaders in charge of the defense portfolios joining us virtually, and also the High Commissioners from those nations here in Malaysia. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Hishammuddin Hussein, Senior Minister of Defence Malaysia, to now begin the session with the media and share the outcome of the Fpda Defence Ministers meeting.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, Malaysia has successfully hosted the 11th Fpda Defence Ministers meeting with Defence Ministers from Singapore, Dr. Ng Eng Hen, Minister for Defence Australia, Peter Dutton, Minister of Defence New Zealand, Pini Hanare, and Minister of Armed Forces United Kingdom, James Hippie, attending virtually. And also we have the High Commissioners and the Defence Attachés from the respective partner nations attending physically. The convening of today's 11th FDMM is an affirmation of continued commitment by all five nations to the five-power defense arrangement. During the meeting, all leaders expressed satisfaction with the outcomes, which included exchange of views on emerging security challenges in the context of regional defense cooperation, discussions on Fpda exercises and activities, and a 10-year plan for exercises from 2022 to 2031, and the adoption of the 50th Fpda anniversary stocktake. Guided by the three principles of remit, relevant, and reassurance, the 50th Fpda stocktake provides future direction on the Fpda's strategic priorities, organizational processes and structure, and activity plans. Today, the defense ministers agreed for the Fpda to focus on continuing high-end war-fighting serials with introduction of fifth-generation assets, enhancing the mission of counter-terrorism and maritime security on non-traditional domains, introducing cybersecurity progressively into the Fpda exercises, and continuing the observership program as a way to enhance transparency and reassurance with other regional partners. The meeting also commended partner nations' commitment for the successful conduct of the exercises, namely Bersama Shield April 2021, the Suman Warriors in July 2021, and of course the latest Bersama Gold in October this year. The recently concluded Bersama Gold 2021, held this month, was exclusively designed to mark the 50th Fpda anniversary. And it's also the first contactless Fpda field training exercise executed in a COVID-19 safe environment. The continuation of the exercise, even during a pandemic, is really proof that Fpda remains resilient and is able to adapt and overcome any challenges. Malaysia is committed to supporting the arrangements and looks forward to Fpda resuming full activities and exercises once COVID-19 pandemic stabilizes. Finally, to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Fpda, Malaysia is honored to host the 50th Fpda anniversary celebrations, which marks another historical milestone for the arrangement, with the launching of the 50th Fpda video, a memorabilia items comprised of the 50th anniversary book, coins, stamps, ending with a commemorative flypast at the Subang Air Base, portraying Fpda's unity and cohesion over the last 50 years. Ladies and gentlemen, the defense ministers also had the opportunity to call upon the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Right Honourable Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri bin Yaakob, and the Prime Minister of Singapore, His Excellency Mr. Lee Hsien Loong. The joint courtesy call was the first ever done in the history of Fpda in this manner. To affirm the partners nations' commitment towards the arrangement, the Fpda Defence Minister also will be signing the 11th FDMM Joint Declaration to symbolize and commemorate our enduring partnership within a constructive regional security architecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sri Hishammuddin Hussein. We shall now proceed to the Joint Declaration signing ceremony. I would like to invite all the leaders to kindly place their signatures on the documentation. And if we're all ready, could we kindly raise the document to the cameras, gentlemen, on your left. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I hope that all of you members of the media, especially those virtually as well, could participate to record this very historic moment. And without further ado, we shall now proceed with the Q&A, and this will be handled for both our physical and also virtual media who are joining us right now. I'd like to invite our virtual members of the media to kindly turn on your cameras. Thank you. And with that, we shall move to our first question from Utusan Malaysia, I believe. Encik Muhammad Hafiz, please kindly pose your question and state whom you would like to address that question to.
Okay, I'm Hafiz from Utusan Malaysia, Datuk Seri.
Yes, I am.
Okay, here is my question. As the second oldest security arrangement in the world, how does the Fpda plan to remain relevant moving forward for the next 50 years?
Well, that's a very, very, very good question. Maybe my fellow colleagues can answer that. But actually, the question pertains to what we were discussing this morning. We are facing a new global landscape with its own challenges post-pandemic COVID-19 future. But I believe that the stocktake that was presented to us, and not only based on our successes in the last 50 years, but it also outlines the way forward, hopefully for the next 50 years. And what we need to do is to look at the challenges that we face today as opportunities. And this opportunity is to make Fpda closer amongst the nation states, to be more resilient, to be more proactive. And a point that was well taken, it has to be agile, it has to be flexible, it has to be in tune with the changing landscape as it unfolds. So it is important now to really look at what was presented by the stocktake and adopted by the ministers. But one particular aspect that we were very conscious about is the current security climate and how cyber security also remains a key priority which has to be introduced in the future planning of Fpda. Current fifth generational assets is another key important factor. Joint exercises that have been successful in the past will have to be expanded in the future. And basically, the shifting geopolitical dynamics is the most pertinent. And having partners and allies who have been with us for 50 years, I cannot ask for a more reliable arrangement in trying to navigate these very unpredictable waters in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Sri.
Would you guys like to add anything to that? Dr. Ng?
I'll leave it to my other more worthy and knowledgeable colleagues.
You've been involved in the FPDA too long, Eng Heng. Okay, the other more knowledgeable colleagues of ours, would you like to say anything, Peter, to that question?
Well, I'll just make a couple of comments. Not because I'm more knowledgeable, but I look to Dr. Ng as the wise man in the room, and he's been there for a long time. And to go to the question in terms of the longevity, but what does the next 5 decades hold? I think it's obvious that we have a real dynamic between the current defence ministers, and I really pay tribute to all of my colleagues, and thanks sincerely Malaysia for hosting today, and the expertise around the table and the support of those who sit in the background has been quite remarkable. And this FPDA is a mainstay. It is a very significant feature of the future, and that's necessary because it builds on a trusted relationship of over 5 decades of working closely together to keep our people safe and secure, and that's the dynamic that we want to adopt into the future as well. So I'm just very pleased and humbled to be in the presence of friends who share the same perspective, and again thank Malaysia and our 2 Prime Ministers for joining us virtually earlier.
Very good. Minister Hanari, would you like to add to it? Penny? No? James, you must have something to say with a cup of coffee.
I think you knocked that out of the park, to be honest. There's not much to add, but the question was how does an organisation like this remain relevant for the next 50 years? This organisation has survived for the last 50 years because it is founded on really close friendships. And I can't see a world in which close friendships go out of fashion and ever become irrelevant. In fact, I think the geopolitical shifts in the world tell us that friendships of this sort become ever more relevant. And so I think the FPDA just needs to keep doing what it's doing, which is standing up for a set of values and assuring the mutual protection of Singapore and Malaysia with your great friends in the UK, Australia, New Zealand.
Thank you. Well said.
Thank you to all the leaders from the various nations for chiming in on that. And now we turn to Amy, who's joining us virtually. She's from the South China Morning Post, and she has a couple of questions. Amy, please pose your question and make sure you address who you would like to answer those questions first, because I know you have a couple. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Good afternoon to everyone. My first question is addressed to Datuk Seri Hishammuddin and as well as Dr. Ng Han. What are the biggest threats which Malaysia and Singapore currently faces? If Datuk Seri Hishammuddin could address the question, and also Dr. Ng Han. Thank you.
I think I will allow the learned doctor to answer that first.
Thank you, Senior Minister Datuk Sri. You always leave me the choice to pick. I'm sure that my colleagues from Australia, New Zealand, and UK would have a view on that. But I thought the response to that question was very directly and effectively answered through the stocktake that our senior officials came up with. And that's encapsulated in the remit which the FPDA was founded upon, which is the external defense of Peninsular Malaysia and Singapore. And as my Prime Minister said, the FPDA was founded, the consultative arrangement, in a very different time. And we were 2 young nations, Malaysia and Singapore, and the FPDA provided a strategic security umbrella upon which we could progress and thrive. And I think today, 50 years on, we have both capable militaries, but this FPDA is even more relevant despite both countries having professional armed forces. So I would say that the Fpda is a defense deterrence, and the saying, the stronger you are, the more friends you have. And we would like to continue that. There isn't any single country that this consultative arrangement is aimed at. It is not meant for that. And this is captured in the second R, which was reassurance. And that's the reason why we invite ASEAN DAs to observe the exercise. We've invited Indonesia's senior officials to be observers as well. And I think that's the nature of Fpda, and it will continue to be so.
Yeah, I totally agree that there is no singular threat that we face, and challenges that we face with regards to security and defense also involves counterterrorism, transnational crime, unintended incidents in the high seas. These are all potential flashpoints in our region. But we are also not spared from what is unfolding beyond our region. And this is something that Fpda must take note of. And the arms and agencies and information that we individually have collectively will be a strength for us in trying to face these challenges. Having said that, the biggest challenge, not a threat, but the biggest challenge to us is how to keep us intact, and how does this organization expand to have more influence outside just the Fpda. And this is an area that we discussed earlier, engagements with ASEAN, for example, engagements with multilateral arrangements with other groupings. But that does not mean that we will stray from the basic principles and values that we have stood for the last 50 years. So we have to stand up there without being apologetic. We have to stand up to them with confidence, but with that confidence also comes humility in facing threats that no one individual country can face on its own.
Thank you, Dr. Sri, and thank you, Dr. Ng. Amy, you have another question?
Amy again?
Yes. The second question, I would actually like to address it to the UK and also to Australia's Right Honourable Ben Dutton. Recently, we all heard a lot about AUKUS. Will AUKUS result in Malaysia and Singapore being caught in the middle of a US-UK, Australia rivalry with China, raising tensions in the Indo-Pacific? Or is this outcry over AUKUS overdone and overhyped? I would appreciate it if Australia and the UK could respond. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to go first, if that suits James. Just a couple of points. I mean, firstly, Australia is a good neighbour, and I think we've evidenced that over the course of the last 5 decades. The friendships that we have with the countries represented today run very deep, and we've been able to demonstrate over the course of that period that we are not a bully, we're not somebody who interferes with the operations of other nations. We are a country which is forthright, and we want prevailing peace in our region, and that's at the centre of our friendships here and Australia's friendships with many other countries within the Indo-Pacific. The next point I'd make is that AUKUS is not a defence alliance or a security pact, nor has it changed Australia's strategy. AUKUS is a framework which will allow us to better share leading-edge military technology and capabilities because we want to ensure that Australia remains a reliable and highly capable partner for countries in the region. We want to do that as we contend with obvious rapid changes in our security environment. It'll complement Australia's network of international partnerships, including the Fpda, but not limited to it. Also with ASEAN, which we see as the primary engagement piece in our region. Obviously, our close relationship with our Pacific family, including New Zealand and many other smaller nations, with the Five Eyes group, with the Quad, and other partners in the region. So from our perspective, AUKUS will complement our collective efforts to meet the challenges, as I say, in that changing circumstance, and to ensure that the Indo-Pacific remains stable, secure, prosperous and free from coercion. That's all we wish for. So I really acknowledge the work that we've been able to do together to ensure that stability over the course of the last 5 decades, and that will be the underpinning for the continued success that we have for all of us and for many of our other neighbours within the region. That prevailing peace and security and stability is at the heart of every decision that Australia makes.
Thank you.
I think what he said, it's the UK and the US have been sharing these technologies for decades. Australia made a capability decision around what it needed from its submarine fleet going into the future, and the opportunity presented itself for them to join with the UK and US in what has already been a very successful technology sharing partnership. And that's exactly what it is. I think that there has been a lot of sort of overhyping of AUKUS. It doesn't in any way reflect any sort of reduction in our friendship with our great colleagues and allies in Paris. It doesn't in any way represent a challenge in your part of the world. It represents 3 countries with a really close friendship that already exists at the highest levels of intelligence sharing within the Five Eyes and our great friends in New Zealand and Canada. The Australians want to develop a capability that the UK and US have been working on for decades together, and it's a great opportunity for the 3 of us to do it going forwards.
Thank you, Amy, for your question, and we'd like to thank all the leaders for joining us virtually. Thank you, Datuk Seri Hishammuddin and Hussein, for also being here, and we'd like to thank all the members of the media joining us virtually for your participation. That's all the time we have for this session, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the organizers, we'd like to thank all the members of the media who have been so gracious to take time off your schedules to be here as well and participate in supporting the ceremony. On that note, thank you everyone, and we'll see you at the next event that we're hosting. Don't forget to catch the Fly Past live at 5:45.
That's in Subang.
That's in Subang. I know a lot of them will be there as well, Datuk Seri. Thank you, members of the media.
All right.